float plane scouts. Several different flying boats were adopted by the Navy, but the PBY was the most widely used and produced. Although the Catalina was slow and ungainly, Allied forces used the aircraft in a wide variety of roles for which it was never intended. PBYs are remembered for their rescue role, in which they saved the lives of hundreds of aircrew downed over water. Catalina airmen called their aircraft the Cat on Combat Mission San Dumbo in Air Sea Rescue Service. 11. The Catalina scored the U.S. Navy's first credited air-to-air kill of a Japanese airplane in the Pacific War. On the 10th of December, 1941, the Japanese attacked the Cavite Navy Yard in the Philippines. Numerous U.S. ships and submarines were damaged or destroyed by bombs and bomb fragments. While flying to safety, PBY riding at sea and ordering the raid on Cavite, Lieutenant Harmon T. Utter's PBY was attacked by 3 Japanese Mitsubishi A6M2 Type 0 Carafighters. Chief Boatswain Earl D. Payne, Utter's bow gunner, shot down 1, thus scoring the U.S. Navy's first kill. Utter, as a commander, later coordinated the carrier airstrikes that led to the destruction of the Japanese battleship Yamato. 12-13. The Catalina performed one of the first offensive operations against the Japanese by the U.S. On the 27th of December, 1941, 6 Catalinas of Patrol Squadron 101 bombed Japanese shipping at Jolo Island against heavy fighter opposition, with 4 Catalinas lost. 12. Anti-submarine warfare. Catalinas were the most extensively used anti-submarine warfare (ASW) aircraft in both the Atlantic and Pacific theaters of World War II, and were also used in the Indian Ocean, flying from the Seychelles and from Ceylon. Their duties included escorting convoys to Murmansk. By 1943, U-boats were well armed with anti-aircraft guns, and 2 Victoria Crosses were won by Catalina pilots pressing home their attacks on U-boats in the face of heavy fire. Flying Officer John Cruikshank of the RAF, in 1944, received the award for sinking U-347, although the submarine is now known to have been U-361-14. And in the same year Flight Lieutenant David Hornell received the decoration posthumously for the sinking of U-1225. Catalinas destroyed 40 U-boats, but not without losses of their own. A Brazilian Catalina attacked and sank U-199 in Brazilian waters on the 31st of July, 1943. Later, the aircraft was baptized as Areira, in memory of the merchant ship of that name which was sunk by another U-boat. 15. Maritime Patrol. PBY Fiver of VP-61 over the Aleutian Islands, 1943. In their role as patrol aircraft, Catalinas participated in some of the most notable naval engagements of World War II. The aircraft's parasol wing and large waist blisters provided excellent visibility, and combined with its long range and endurance, made it well suited for the task. An RAF Coastal Command Catalina, with Ensign Leonard B. Smith of the U.S. Navy as co-pilot, and flying from Castle Archdale Flying Boat Base, Lower Loch Earn, Northern Ireland, located the German battleship Bismarck on the 26th of May, 1941. Some 619 mi, 1,280 kilometers, 790 mi, northwest of Brest. Bismarck was attempting to evade Royal Navy forces as she sought to join other Kriegsmarine forces in Brest. Note 1, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This sighting eventually led to the destruction of the German battleship. On the 7th of December, 1941, before the Japanese amphibious landings on Kota Baru, Malaya, their invasion force was approached by a Catalina flying boat of No. 205 Squadron RAF. The aircraft was shot down by 5 Nakajima 27 fighters before it could radio its report to Air Headquarters in Singapore. 21. Flying Officer Patrick Biddle, commanding the Catalina, and his 7 crew members became the first Allied casualties in the war with Japan. 22. Patrol Wing 10 of the U.S. Asiatic Fleet had 44 Catalinas under its command but lost 41 within 90 days. Patrol Wing 10 also lost its main seaplane tender, USS Langley, to Japanese aircraft during the Dutch East Indies campaign while it was transporting 32 Curtiss P-40 Warhawk fighter planes. 23-24. A flight of Catalinas spotted the Japanese fleet approaching Midway Island, beginning the Battle of Midway. 25. Squadron leader Leonard Burchale aboard a Consolidated Catalina before being shot down and captured near Ceylon by the Japanese Aircraft Kanso flown by Squadron leader L.J. Burchale foiled Japanese plans to destroy the Royal Navy's Indian Ocean Fleet on 4 April 1942 when it detected the Japanese carrier fleet approaching Ceylon. 26. Night attack and naval interdiction. During the Battle of Midway, 4 U.S. Navy PBYs of patrol squadrons 24 and 51 made a night torpedo attack on the Japanese fleet on the night of 3–4 June 1942, scoring 1 hit which damaged fleet oiler Akbano Maru, the only successful American torpedo attack in the entire battle. 27. During the Guadalcanal campaign, some U.S. Navy PBYs were repainted matte black and sent on night bombing, torpedoing, and strafing missions against Japanese supply vessels and warships, including conducting interdiction raids on Tokyo Express. These PBYs were later called Black Cats. Subsequently, special squadrons of Black Cats were formed, commencing in December 1942 with VP-12. With an additional 13 squadrons coming into service thereafter. Note 2. Flying slowly at night, dipping to ship mast height, the Black Cats bombed, strafed, and torpedoed all kinds of Japanese vessels, sinking or damaging thousands of tons of shipping. The Black Cats also performed bombing, strafing and harassment regarding land-based Japanese installations, as well as conducting reconnaissance and search and rescue operations. The Black Cat squadrons continued to be active into 1944 with the PB-4Y2 beginning to come in service in greater numbers and replacing the PBYs, the last Black Cat squadrons returning to the U.S. in early 1945. 28-29. The Royal Australian Air Force, RAF, also operated Catalinas as night raiders, with 4 squadrons numbers 11, 20, 42, and 43 laying mines from the 23rd of April 1943 until July 1945 in the Southwest Pacific deep in Japanese-held waters, bottling up ports and shipping routes and forcing ships into deeper waters to become targets for U.S. submarines. They tied up the major strategic ports such as Balikpapan, which shipped 80% of Japanese oil supplies. In late 1944, their mining missions sometimes exceeded 20 hours in duration and were carried out from as low as 200 feet, 61 m, in the dark. Operations included trapping the Japanese fleet in Manila Bay in assistance of General Douglas MacArthur's landing at Mindoro in the Philippines. Australian Catalinas also operated out of Jinamok in the Lit Gulf, and mined ports on the Chinese coast from Hong Kong to as far north as Wencao. Both USN and RAF Catalinas regularly mounted nuisance night bombing raids on Japanese bases, with the RAF claiming the slogan "the first and the furthest." Targets of these raids included a major base at Rabaul. RAF aircrews, like their U.S. Navy counterparts, employed terror bombs, ranging from scrap metal and rocks to empty beer bottles with razor blades inserted into the necks, to produce high-pitched screams as they fell, keeping Japanese soldiers awake and scrambling for cover. 30. There was a Catalina base on Drumi Head on the Gove Peninsula in the Northern Territory. 31. Search and rescue. Catalinas were employed by every branch of the U.S. military as rescue aircraft. A PBY piloted by LCDR Adrian Marks, USN, rescued 56 sailors in high seas from the heavy cruiser Indianapolis after the ship was sunk during World War II. When there was no more room inside, the crew tied sailors to the wings. The search and rescue LA-10 at USAF Museum aircraft could not fly in this state. Instead, it acted as a lifeboat protecting the sailors from exposure and the risk of shark attack until rescue ships arrived. Catalinas continued to function in the search and rescue role for decades after the end of the war. Early commercial use. Flight steward Max White at work on board a Qantas Empire Airways Catalina aircraft en route from Soweto, Sydney in January 1949 with young passenger Jennifer Gray. Catalinas were also used for commercial air travel. For example, Qantas Empire Airways flew commercial passengers from Soweto, Sydney, a journey of 2,060 miles, 3,320 kilometers, which in 1949 took 2 days. 32. The longest commercial flights, in terms of time aloft, ever made in aviation history were the Qantas flights flown weekly from the 29th of June, 1943 through July 1945 over the Indian Ocean, dubbed the Double Sunrise. Qantas offered non-stop service between Perth and Colombo, a distance of 3,592 mi, 4,134 mi, 6,652 kilometers. As the Catalina typically cruised at 110 km, 130 miles per hour, 200 kilometers per hour. This took from 28 to 32 hours and was called the flight of the double sunrise, since passengers saw 2 sunrises during their non-stop journey. The flight was made in radio silence because of the possibility of Japanese attack and had a maximum payload of 1,000 pounds, 450 kilograms, or 3 passengers plus 143 pounds, 65 kilograms, of military and diplomatic mail. 33. Post-World War II employment. Civilian Catalina, modified for aerial firefighting, arrives at the seaplane base, NAS Whidbey Island, Oak Harbor, Washington, 18 September 2009. An Australian PBY named Frigate Bird 2, an X-ray aircraft registered VHASA, made the first trans-Pacific flight across the South Pacific between Australia and Chile in 1951 by Sir Gordon Taylor, 34, making numerous stops at islands along the way for refueling, meals, and overnight sleep of its crew, flown from Sydney to Quintero in Chile after making initial landfall at Valparaiso via Tahiti and Easter Island. 35. One of 6 ordered by the RAF was used as part of the air route across the Pacific from Sydney to Valparaiso, is in the collection of the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences in Sydney. 36. With the end of the war, all of the flying boat versions of the Catalina were quickly retired from the U.S. Navy, but the amphibious versions remained in service for some years. The last Catalina in U.S. service was a PBY-6 operating with a Naval Reserve Squadron, which was retired from use on the 3rd of January 1957. 3. The Catalina subsequently equipped the world's smaller armed services into Pilot 1960s in fairly substantial numbers. The U.S. Air Force's Strategic Air Command used Catalinas, designated OA-10s, in service as scout aircraft from 1946 through 1947. The Brazilian Air Force flew Catalinas in naval air patrol missions against German submarines starting in 1943. The flying boats also carried out airmail deliveries. In 1948, a transport squadron was formed and equipped with PBY-5s converted to the role of amphibious transports. The first Air Transport Squadron, ETA-1, was based in the port city of Belém and flew Catalinas and C-47s until 1982. Catalinas were convenient for supplying military detachments scattered along the Amazon. They reached places that were otherwise accessible only by helicopters. The ETA-1 insignia was a winged turtle with the motto "Vow slowly, I always get there." Today, the last Brazilian Catalina, a former ACF-1, is displayed at the Airspace Museum, Museu, in Rio de Janeiro. 37. PBY-6 A Catalina drops a load of water from its Bombay dos Jack Cives Custio used a PBY-6 N10